Hey there, I'm at the Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, and you can see here, found a little secluded place here by the parking lot, and it's kind of above the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. And I want to talk about music for film. I was going to do a video about the types of music in film and TV, but I'm going to split it up into two videos, and I'm going to talk about, in this video, I'm going to talk about the types of music in a movie. And this is kind of, the idea here is to kind of help you optimize, figure out where you might fit in getting those opportunities to write music for film. And so there's three types of music in a movie, and you know all of them. One is called score. And that's generally what someone like John Williams is doing. That's the, a lot of times it's full orchestra. I worked on the Transformers movie, and I went to one of the scoring sessions for Steve Jablonsky for that one, and it was a 66 string orchestra that they recorded, and then they had another session booked after that with the same orchestra, and they were going to double everything, so it was going to be a 132 piece string section for the score. It's amazing stuff. And so that's the kind of thing, like Star Wars. Darth Vader is a mean, nasty guy. That's the score. There's themes, there's all that stuff. And those are very, very difficult jobs to get, especially on the major feature films. There's just so many, there's only so many of those jobs. In fact, not that long ago, I had a lunch with a producer in Hollywood, and I asked him just out of curiosity, and I had an answer already in my head, but I asked him anyway. I said, what's the most applied for job in a movie? And in my head I was thinking actor, and he said composer, and I said, not actor? He goes, no, he said actor. Yeah, there are a million actors in Hollywood, but there could be 100 or 200 actors in a movie. There's lots of opportunities for actors in movies. He said, but in a film, for a film, there's only one composer, and it's very, very rare to have two composers on a film. So there's, it's like having two painters on a painting. That just doesn't happen. So film scoring is a very difficult thing to get into, and it doesn't mean you can't. And everybody's path to that is different. But there are two other types of music. One is needle drops, and needle drops are generally known songs. They don't have to be known songs, but they are songs that were produced and released and already owned, and that there are copyrights for, that film studios want to purchase to put in their movie. Like Adam Sandler will put an Aerosmith song in, or a Led Zeppelin song in, or a Ted Nugent song in his movie, to kind of set the tone or set the mood for the film, to kind of set up a scene. Those are called needle drops, and those have to be licensed. They have to purchase two licenses, and I'm going to talk about a lot of these subjects in greater detail in future videos. But in that situation, let's say you're Ted Nugent, there's two licenses that have to be negotiated. One is the sync license, which is the license with the copyright holders, which are the writers and publishers. And the other one is the master license, which is the license that has to be negotiated with whoever owns the master, and usually that's the record company. So, but if you happen to be the record company and the writer and everything, say you made the record yourself, then you get to negotiate both of those things for yourself, and then you might get, it just depends. Everything's different. I've done licenses for as little as $1 because I'm more interested in getting the back end. So those are needle drops, and those are songs, like I said, generally tend to be known songs, but they don't have to be. There's a lot of movies that take unknown songs and put them in the movie. And now the third type of music in a movie, and this is the one where this is kind of how I got my start, and that's source music. And source music is music that you would hear in a lot of different situations. This is music that generally the characters hear. The characters don't hear the score in a movie. The characters don't hear the needle drops in a movie. What they do hear is source. So if a truck driver turns on the radio and there's a country song playing on the radio, a lot of times what they'll do, especially if there's going to be dialogue or something, they'll drop some kind of instrumental music in there that won't distract from the dialogue. A lot of times if there's lyrics, that's distracting from dialogue, so they'll opt more for music that's just instrumental. Or if there's a nightclub, if people walk into a nightclub and there's some EDM music playing, that's a perfect example of source music in the background, and sometimes that can run for a long time. I had a classical guitar piece run in a coffee shop scene for like 4.5 minutes, and that's good because the longer the scene, the more seconds you have in a movie. Those all go on the cue sheet. We're going to talk about cue sheets in the future, and the cue sheets are what get you paid. Okay, those are what get filed with the performing rights organizations like BMI and ASCAP and CSAC, and then they pay you on a quarterly basis based on how often your music was listened to. So a source piece, I get a lot of opportunities like that because I work with a lot of composers, and some of the composers I work with are doing more like very low budget films, and oftentimes they're asked not only create the score, but they're asked to create any other incidental music in the movie. And so I've told all those composers that feel free to think of me as a resource, and I can take some work off their table, and sometimes I'll get $500 for a license fee, sometimes I'll get $1,000, sometimes I'll get $1. If it's a really low budget, and unfortunately when they get around to scoring a movie, it's the last thing they do. And so that is where, you know, you're most likely to get your opportunities. If you've got a music school around where you live, I would go there and see if there's film students, if there's a film school, but if there's music film scoring students there, and they're starting to work on student films, that could be your entrance to getting into, connecting with directors, connecting with future composers, and getting your music in a movie that may not actually ever generate any revenue for you. But the nice thing about source music is that it's like a needle drop tune. You own the copyright on it, and you own the master. If it's something that you created in your studio, you own it. If it's just you playing classical guitar, then you own it outright, and you can put it in 10 movies. It doesn't matter. They don't own it, so they can't tell you, no, you can't put it in any other movies. So that's another good thing about source. And just to clarify, going back to talking about score, in a movie, score is usually written after picture lock, which means the movie is done, it's been edited, it's been cut, and it's not always the case. Certainly not in the big blockbusters. They often make changes even after the composer gets it. But composing music is usually one of the last things done, and there's usually a very short timetable to get that work done. So you have to be creative very efficiently, and then you have to do whatever arranging and recording you need to do, whether it's a full orchestra or whether it's just you on the guitar or you on piano. You need to get that done as well. So it's a very intense job. I've only scored a couple little pictures, just again 5-minute short independent films, and never generated any real revenue from them. So that's not really something I'm seeking to do. If it falls in my lap, I probably would do it just for fun and for experience. Remember my 5 reasons to take a gig. But the source music is something that is a good opportunity. And on one movie, a Lifetime movie, I did 2 pieces for a movie, and one was indeed a guy turning on the radio, and there was just me doing kind of a Chet Atkins kind of solo guitar thing. I think I put brushes on it and a little upright bass, samples. You really can't tell. It's coming through a radio. They play it through, they filter it so it sounds like it's coming through a radio, so the quality isn't great. But that's kind of the point. It's supposed to be in the background. The guy's driving a truck. It ran for about a minute in the movie. And there was a second scene where there was a conversation happening, and there was a country band playing in the background. Okay, so in the foreground were the actors acting, in the background was this country band, and the music that they had played originally in that they thought was too distracting. So they asked me to replace that music. So they sent me the scene so I could kind of get the tempo from the hands of the musicians and everything, and I wrote new music that was much simpler and not too rambunctious, and it fit better and was able to sit better behind the dialogue, which is very important. That's the key in a movie. That's really what they want to capture more. Here's the interesting thing about that, though. The song coming out of the radio was designated as BI, background instrumental. That's about the lowest paying type of royalty you can get on a cue sheet. But the band was playing actually my music was written long after the band was filmed, but it appeared like they were playing my music, which means that that's a background visual, a BV. And there's all sorts of different designations. There's visual vocal, which is probably the highest paying. If you hear someone or you see someone singing a song. If you hear a song, that's different. That's background vocal. But a visual vocal would be that. But this was a visual instrumental. And so it, on a per second basis, paid 3 or 4 times what the background instrumental paid for the same show. So when I get my royalty checks, I can see on the one song, which I can't remember what it was called, but it was the background instrumental track, will pay $1. And then the other one, which is a longer track anyway, so it was already longer, but I'm calculating the amounts, basically dividing by the time. So on a per second basis, it paid about 4 times as much. And it was a longer thing. So I may get $1 for the one song and then $17 for the other, or something like that. So it's really interesting how all that works out. And it makes sense, but this is just to basically give you an idea of how you can start. Maybe that might be a good way to kind of get in there a little bit and get some credits and get some IMDb credits and get some music in some situations and just get practice. And here's the thing: many of these tracks that I have were tracks that are already recorded. So my admonition to you is to start creating now, not knowing what kind of opportunities you're going to get 6 months from now, or a year from now, or 6 years from now. And in those opportunities, you might actually get an opportunity to write or to submit a song that you already wrote 5 years ago. So you should be creating now, and if nothing else, getting better at recording and arranging and producing and writing and all that stuff. And you'll find that hey, if it's $10 a quarter, it's $10 a quarter. My goal on my YouTube channel is to get up to $100 a month so that it'll pay for my Starbucks, my venti drip every day. Okay? So anyway, I hope this is helpful. Sorry I went long. I knew it would be long. Imagine if I'd added television to it. I'm going to talk about television on the next one, music for television. God bless you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.